Hello, hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to the first official episode of this podcast. I'm so glad you are here listening, and I'm also very grateful already for the comments I received on my introduction episodes. It really feels refreshing to make this like it's part of the next chapter in my work that I'm doing, in my life in general, because as the preparations that I'm doing for my road trip that I will do through Europe, I've had a lot of things that I was guided to really let go of. I was still holding on to some old assumptions of my ego mind that clearly are not in alignment with the new version of me, the new way of living that I am navigating towards. And one of the mirrors that I clearly received the last couple of days now when I'm recording this episode is that I really have to let go of my Dutch services, which is so frightening for my ego because it's so comfortable, but I know this I know this pattern because I experienced and I felt the same when I was leaving my apartment, because my apartment was so comfortable and safe, and my ego mind was flipping, freaking out when it realized I was really leaving that place. So that's a little bit about how I'm currently doing the last couple of days. Welcome to You Are the One. I made a little change on the name of this podcast. So originally I made it You Are, but as I'm realizing more and more that my love language is really to remind you of the fact that you are light, you are truth, you are the one, then it was very clear to me that I had to rename this podcast. I guess in the next episode, because I already recorded another one about authenticity. In my intro, I'm speaking about you are, but I wanted to announce this in this episode. Welcome to You Are the One, the podcast in which I'm guiding and activating you into the truth of what you are. Because the truth is that you've always been free and love, abundance, light, and infinite. And we are currently in such an interesting time for the human consciousness because we are shifting from matter to energy. And when you realize this, and even more when you start to feel this, you start to embrace all that you feel, you can make energy work for you and set this as a priority instead of controlling the outcome of certain circumstances in your life, controlling in general the 3D experience that you are having as a infinite being. And shifting from the focus of matter and the physical realm into energy comes along with shifting from the mind into the heart and the soul, and our bodies are a bridge for this. What I've seen the last couple of years, and especially because I've experienced this too, and then I got these mirrors in my 3D field of reality because I was shifting into this higher perspective, is that we can't any longer approach spirituality from a place of just the mind, just knowledge, or just 1 or 2 experiences a year. For example, a ceremony. No, if you really want to change your life and claim and embody the truth of what you are, it all starts from the inside out. It all starts from your inner world, your energetics, everything that you are feeling during your days. This is really an age that requires to embody energy, to embody your knowledge that you've been consuming in your mind about spirituality. And I can share a personal story on this one, because once I realized I've always been whole and complete, that was the only healing that I actually needed. So I stopped consciously healing. I stopped setting this healing as a priority, this self-development tools as a priority. I all dropped it, and I started to live again in the present moment with what is, and I started to observe my thoughts. And that's what really brought a big shift into my inner world, and so also into my outer worlds. Because let's be honest, constantly reading books about, for example, astrology, the chakras, or listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos with predictions about the collective consciousness in energy, what themes are arising, and so on, is actually almost the same as consuming information about science. In general, just learning, studying all these things that we learned at school. Everything that we consume mentally saves itself into our ego mind, into our programmed ego minds, which means that we are still feeding our ego mind, we are still activating our ego mind, and so we are still living from this place. Whether it's spiritual knowledge, knowledge about nutrition, knowledge about technology, you are still operating from your mental programming. And the truth is, you don't need that any longer. Yes, you can still co-create and co-work with your programmed ego mind, but it asks to reprogram this with new experiences, with what you are feeling, instead of only using this programmed mind as your guidance, as your compass that is telling you how to live, which decision might be right or wrong. You are still identifying with this program and limiting yourselves. You are forcing yourselves instead of listening to the guidance that's always been there for you in the present moments, in your body. Now, 2 years ago exactly, because I know this episode will be released on the 1st of May. On the 1st May of 2024, something internally shifted completely for me. And maybe I will never forget this day. I only lived for 1 month in my first solo apartment, and The first month was still my ego mind holding on to so many things that didn't serve me any longer. So I was in a lot of fear. I was stressed. I couldn't feel just trust in myself. I couldn't relax properly anymore. And that was also the last month that I worked a 9-to-5 job. And I really started to realize after this one, because I know it would end, I will never ever work for a boss any longer. I'm so done, and I will stay true to this inner knowing. And the 1st of May is how can you say this? A holiday in Belgium. So I think the 2 days after the 1st of May, I had my last working days. So the sun was shining and I was sitting in my sofa and I was watching my bookshelf. And there I saw this book that I read at that time 2 years ago. So in 2022, I read this one for the first time, but not completely. And it was a book, The Power of Now, of course, by Eckhart Tolle. It really is a book that every human being should read because it's a true liberation when you also start to apply what he is teaching in this book. And I felt this strong inner urge just to pick it up again and to start reading it from the beginning. So that's what I did on my balcony in the sun. I read, I think, the first chapter of the book or the first 2 chapters of the book, and something started to sink in. Like I got activations, my body started to relax, my mind became quiet. And then I wanted to apply this, what I was feeling, really in the 3D field of reality. So I decided to go for a walk into the city and I tried to apply the tools to just be. I started to observe what was arising in my head, in my body. I started to just be around people without trying to be someone or something. No, I just allowed everything to be just how it was. And first, I remember my mind was still seeing this or seeing it again as something that I had to do. So that's when you just create again resistance, and it doesn't work like that. So I dropped it. I don't know how. I know it's been 2 years now, so I can't remember any details. But on my way home, I felt this oneness for the first time. I felt so good within. I just knew certain things without mentally or logically having an explanation for this. It was an internal knowing. It was a fulfillment, a relaxation within that I was speechless, and I knew this is truth. This is what I've always been. This is unity consciousness. All my worries disappeared because I felt it again. I remembered it again. The codes of unity, the truth. It was always there. It was always in me. I was this. And separation was clearly an illusion. And that was such a confirmation for what I've always, or the year before that in 2023, started to realize and started to feel like forcing myself to heal and to work on myself and seeing myself as this project. It was so draining. And I think half a year before the 1st of May, I already dropped the healing. But when I first consciously felt this unity, this frequency of unity, this wholeness, this completeness, if that is a word, within, it was so clear to me. It's bullshit, this healing. And that's when I stopped using these words. And instead of healing, I used the word remembering. And it was such a magical time, these months after I experienced this for the first time. It was like everything was shifting so rapidly within myself and also outside of myself. I manifested almost immediately certain things because I was so deeply rooted in the present moment. Not always, of course, we are still human. I still have an ego mind, just as you. But from that moment on, and I can be quite radical at times, when I feel something so strongly, I made like that was the only goal for me every day to shift into, to just be, to feel this presence, this awareness, this enlightenment. And that's when I also slowly started to lose interest in astrology, in female embodiment, because that was always a big passion of mine before I had this moment of self-realization. Every spiritual tool and concepts, not every, but a lot of them, I dropped them. And it felt so good because it's made so much more space for me in my daily life to live again, to stop constantly consuming myself or my minds with things, to stop distracting myself with all these entertaining things about spirituality that is constantly feeding this spiritual ego of mine. I dropped it and I started to feel so good. I started to feel gratitude for the biggest and smallest things in my life. I started to live more simple, less material stuff. I also stopped doing oracle readings for myself because if I can look back on this, I was clearly a little bit addicted to constantly read cards to get insights because I realized the guidance was always within. And the less distractions I had in my life, the more I could listen, like really listen to this guidance, this compass within, this oneness, the wisdom. I realized I am wisdom. We are all wisdom. We don't need anything to apply so we can gain more wisdom. Oh my God, we are born so wise and complete and open, connected to Source, because we are Source experiencing itself through duality. I felt so alive. I loved being just in nature and listening to the birds. That was like the biggest gift to experience. I started to create a more simple life for myself. I started to enjoy all the little things, and I also started to express this realization, this experience, through just dancing on my own in the living room, through singing, although I can't sing that very well. I started to draw, to write. Every urge that arose within me to do, I just did. Because I was giving myself the permission to receive again, to truly feel again without analyzing, without fixing, without understanding what I was feeling. I just allowed it. I embraced it. I felt grateful for all the things that I felt. I opened my heart for it. My small self, like the false self, also called oftentimes, so I mean with this, the ego, disappeared sometimes. And that's where true liberation actually happens. Because you realize you are not your personality, you are not all these thoughts, this voice in your head. So why would we see ourselves as a project? Why would we feed ourselves with new stories that we have to work on this one, this pattern? And no, like the healing, the remembrance is constantly there. As long as you allow it and don't touch all these judgmental things that you are having about yourself, that you need to change because otherwise you can't build this dream life. No, this is bullshit. Life is constantly flowing through you. It's working for you. I really started to feel this creative life force energy flowing through my whole body because I stopped approaching this life from the perspective of the ego minds. I stopped forcing myself to do certain things, to gain certain things. Being was enough. It always was. But when we identify with the small self, we are constantly in resistance. We are fighting for our rights, for our dreams. We are being in victimhood, victim mentality, people pleasing, just to get or to be seen, to feel worthy again. But it's all an illusion. You don't need that. You've always been that. You've always been free. But you were in this prison. You were living between these four walls that were actually an illusion. You were putting these walls there. You were seeing yourself as a prisoner. And so that's why you weren't feeling free. That was the reason why you felt this suffering, this needing of validation, everything that was draining and making you feel down and maybe even depressed. Because the ego mind is too afraid to really trust on what you are. It can't comprehend fully the essence of your being. So it's constantly there, talking in your minds, judging, seeing problems, because it's so afraid, because it doesn't trust on the truth. And that's exactly what was holding you back in life. Just a small and quick example. Believing that you have to transform, alchemize certain energies or assumptions, mental stories, patterns within yourself is the thing that is holding you back. Just believing that you have to change that Is embodying lack, is embodying separation, is embodying that there is work and that you are not worthy enough until you realize this, or change or alchemize or transform or shift this within you. You are so powerful, really. And this period in which I had this radical change in my consciousness is of course something that I'm still embodying daily in my life. But my frequency of consciousness has clearly stabilized in a higher frequency. So it's all about stopping to reach certain points in spiritual experiences, for example, enlightenments, and realizing that you've always been enlightened and that you don't have to do anything for that. That really helps to raise your frequency. That opens your hearts. That gives you the feeling of joy again, of enjoying life again with all its ups and downs. And that's why life is also unconditional love. Because whatever you embody, you will get reflected. That will be your reality. So if you embody, I need to work on myself, then you will have to work on yourself, because that's your truth. That's how powerful you are. You write your own stories. That's why I even believe that anything is possible that you can make up with your mind. That's also why the ego mind not really is a villain. It's also a very powerful, useful tool in this human experience. But it's all about co-working with it. Setting your consciousness, your aliveness, the feeling, the being, the soul in the driver's seats, and just drop the ego mind at the back of the car and show the ego mind, give the experiences of what you deserve, of what you are, of what life really is. And the ego mind will also start to work for you. But of course, we've all been conditioned in certain programs at school, in our childhood in general, at work maybe, things that happened in our life that are memories saved in our database of the mind and the body also. But it's just like I said, these are memories. They are not the truth in the present moment. That's why the present moment is so important to focus on, because all is well now. You are safe while listening to this. The past and the future are an illusion created by the mind, which distracts you from the truth of what you are. And the truth of what you are, you can only really experience in the present moment by also connecting with your body, by movements, by connecting with your senses, by living more slowly, by making a ceremony of your daily tasks. That's what helps to get to know your own energy better, to come home to yourself and to love your own company. I can share so much more about this, but this is just a summary of the realizations that I had the last couple of years. And of course, I'm here with this podcast to make so much more episodes on this about this awakening journey, about embodying the truth of what you are, because there are so many layers in this. But I really hope that I could inspire and activate you guys with my story, and that it's really safe to drop the assumption of that you have to heal yourself, that there's something wrong with you, and that you only can receive or achieve certain dreams that you've always had when you do things. That's really living from a place of conditions, conditional love. And that's not the truth. That's the story of the minds. Can you allow yourself to enjoy again? Can you give yourself the permission to dream and to build this dream life, although the ego mind is freaking out, is so afraid, is constantly in resistance? Can you stay very close to yourself? Can you listen to your needs? Can you listen to your body? That's where you are allowing yourself to truly live, and that you are worth all of your heart's desires. Thank you, everyone who listened to this. Drop comments on this episode if you want to. I love reading those, and I wish you a very clear, brightful, and soft day. Bye-bye.